armor capped, your resistance capped, but your boss fights still look like this. Why? What's the secret to staying alive? We're going to cover all of that, plus more. By the time you're done with this video, your survivability can go from looking like this to looking like this right here.
Feeling is deceiving.
Now that, of course, was just a demo of the survivability of the character. This is what the actual boss fights look like when you're fighting Belial with this build. So if you're looking to find a really fun build on the Barbarian, you should check out the build. It'll be in the description of this video. It is fun, it's fast, and it hits hard, but that's not what we're here for. We're here for your defenses. Now, as you can see, I am very, very far below armor cap, but what is armor cap? We'll talk about that in a second. I'm also just slightly shy of my resistance cap here. Now, there's a couple different things that we're going to talk about. We're going to cover all of this because your armor and your resistance cap is not enough to keep yourself alive. Why is that? What else do we need to know? This document will be in the description of the video. This is going to be a basic overview of how to set up your defenses. This is going to be from the viewpoint of a barbarian, but all of this stuff is going to fit into every single class, no matter what you do. So right here, we're going to look at our armor cap. Our armor cap is going to be 1,000. So in the game, when you look at your armor, here it says physical damage reduction taken is going to be equal to 47% right now, because I only have 693 armor. 1,000 armor is required for maximum reduction at level 60. There are aspects that if you increase your armor, it's going to give you attack. That's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about your armor cap. Gaining a ton of armor doesn't actually give you any more damage reduction than having 1,000. So that's where you want to sit, at about the 1,000 mark, unless you need it for something else. For your resistances, now they did raise the cap this season, which is great, because now you get more damage reduction from elemental attacks. However, that is a much harder number to hit. It only seems like 5%, but that 5% really can be quite a stretch with how all of the resistances have changed. The uniques now have less resistance to all elements, which was a really great way in the previous seasons to get there. They changed around how that all works. So we're going to go over how you can get to that cap and then different ways in this season and probably going forward that you're going to have to look at your resistances. A really cool feature is with your resistance here, you can actually see how far over cap you are. Now, if you look right here, I'm 75% over my cap for shadow resistance. So if I had something that gave me shadow resistance, just like my Crown of Lucian, and I replaced that, I would still be almost over cap because Crown of Lucian actually gives me 97%. That's a whole lot. So it's a really great way to change around and swap some of your resistances on your gear. And that is what's going to be a little bit different this season. In order for me to get to my cap, there's been a lot of different things, and depending on the content I'm running, I have a chest piece here. This has cold resistance in it. When I put that on, I am now basically capped on everything. The reason that these are not showing capped, and we'll talk about that when we get into the Paragon board, but if you look at your resistance here, it actually tells you that you cannot exceed 85%. So if you gain additional stats that increase your maximum resistances, you can go up to 85 damage reduction from elemental attacks. Resistances will only affect elemental things like fire, lightning, shadow, cold, and poison, as armor is going to be physical damage reduction. So anything that actually hits your character, that's going to be where you get the reduction from that. So those are just your basic setup for defense. That's what you want to do right when you hit Torment 1. The first thing you want to do is work on your resistances and your armor cap. Now, how do you progress past that? If you scroll down to the bottom here, you're going to see that we have in our defense section here, we have damage reduction. Damage reduction is going to be how you want to get your character from Torment 1 to Torment 4 and put together your survivability. It's something that a lot of people don't really talk about. When people pop into chat and talk about the build that I'm running and tell me that it feels really squishy, this is the first thing that I ask. How is your damage reduction? Because resistances and armor will not get you there. So when you look here, we're going to be talking about the damage reduction and then your sources of damage reduction and where you can get them from. The pictures here will give you a very brief description of it and you can kind of see it in game. But the first thing we're going to look at your skill tree. So in the skill tree, there's actually a lot of different sources of damage reduction. If you don't take those, and that includes life, that's really going to hurt your character. And how you can do that, a very easy way to do this, you go to the keyword search up here. You're going to select damage reduction right here. And now it's actually going to highlight every single node that will give you damage reduction. So if you look right here, even with the way that my character is set up, I'm missing quite a lot of nodes. That is only because my character is in a really good spot with where the gear is at. But when I was leveling and I was going from Torment 1 to Torment 4, I had Defensive Stance, I had Guttural Yell, I had points into Aggressive Resistance. It's really important that you're going to take those nodes, depending on how your character feels, and it's okay to take them out and see how you feel, and then put them back in if you start feeling really squishy again. So make sure that that is something that you're looking at in your board. If you're following a guide and the guide doesn't have it, but you're not surviving, swap some points around. If you're dead, you can't do any damage. So it's okay to take out some offensive nodes and then move them into the defensive section if you can't survive. So if I wasn't able to survive and I wanted to take some points out of belligerence and put them into defensive stance to gain some additional damage reduction and then some passive life regeneration, it's a really great option for me to stay alive and then still do damage. I'll still be able to kill monsters, maybe a little bit slower, but if you don't do that, then you're not going to kill them at all. Now, I did briefly mention life. Let's hop into the Paragon section because this is also where you're going to get several different damage reduction nodes, including life. When you go back over to your keyword search, you can select damage reduction again. I have actually taken all of the damage reduction nodes inside of all of the boards that possibly have them. This is just an extra layer of damage reduction. Now, you saw that I only have 20 damage reduction here. This is going to actually have diminishing returns, so the more damage reduction that you start to add on, the less it's going to affect your damage reduction, as long as it's from the same source. Reduces the incoming damage taken from all sources after applying your armor and non-physical resistances. So after your armor and after your resistances have removed all of the damage reduction that they would have had, that's when your damage reduction is going to take effect, and then it's going to mitigate the damage even more after it's been mitigated from your armor and your resistances. As this stat increases, additional bonuses become less effective. So you're going to get less damage reduction the more damage reduction that you add onto your gear. It is still an important stat to add. You'll be able to see the gains and losses when you put a piece of gear on that has damage reduction simply by looking at this tool right here. When you put it on, if you put on something that says 20 damage reduction and it only goes up by 15, you know that you're starting to hit that diminishing return mark. Fortunately, what we've been doing here is we've been stacking multiple sources of damage reduction. We have 20 all damage reduction. We have damage reduction from elites. We have damage reduction from vulnerable enemies and damage reduction from bleeding enemies. So these are all going to get applied simultaneously after we've mitigated the damage from your armor and your resistances. So having multiple sources of damage reduction is going to be an incredibly important part of you gearing up your character so that you don't get one shot all the time. Back into the Paragon board here. We have now looked at all of the damage reduction nodes, is that we can also get armor from this. So if you go into armor, you can actually see that there's a whole bunch of nodes here. And if I needed more armor, which you actually saw that I did need more armor, and we'll talk about that in just a second, that you can go and you can add your points into all of this. Now, this all comes as you level up your Paragon board, so you can't get all of this right away. And we'll cover that too in just a second. The next thing we're going to talk about is life, because I did mention life. Life is actually an incredibly big damage reduction modifier that a lot of people really overlook. Let's say a monster is going to hit you for 6,000. You have 20,000 life, you now have 14,000 life, it doesn't really feel too bad. But if you only have 7,000 life, and after all of the damage reduction that you already have on, that monster hits you for 6,000, it's pretty scary. So having extra life is a really, really important part of your progression. If you look here, I have taken pretty much every single life node that you possibly can get, so that this way I can end up having this 20,000 life, and that's unbuffed. I haven't added anything in. By the time I'm fully buffed, if I needed to, I can be around 30,000 life. That is going to make you feel so much better when you get hit by something that normally would have been a huge multiplier. Now, I do have some pretty good gear on, so this is going to be a progression and a journey that you're going to get. So you want to make sure that that is something you're focused on. If your build says that you need the Rage of Haragoth, but you have a chest piece that's going to give you your resistances, it's going to give you some more maximum life, and is going to give you a little bit more armor, that might be the choice that you want to run because it's going to be better for your character at the time. Once your gear gets put online, then you can follow the planners back to a T, but the planners are just guides. You don't have to stick to them 100%. You're going to want to build to whatever is going to suit your character the best. Now, speaking of planners, when you're looking for a planner and when you're building your Paragon board, because this is incredibly important here, you're going to look for a planner that is not going to give you a full Paragon board. If you pull up a planner and it has all your points spent for level 300, follow exactly the way that this is laid out. I've only taken every single legendary node and every single glyph And then we go into the damage reduction modifiers after that. You don't want to go into any offensive ones until you have unlocked all of those damage reduction modifiers. Life, damage reduction, anything like that is going to be incredibly important, including your resistances. So we've gone into resistances, damage reduction, life. Those are the ones you need to unlock. Don't just go through and fill out every single board. Earlier, we talked about going over your resistance cap. If you look at some of these nodes here and the way that they work, and the great thing about these planners is you can zoom in, you can zoom out. So make sure you follow along with a planner, because this is going to be the most optimal way. If you're watching a video and have to pause it and you can't really see it because it's too small, the planners will be in the description of most of the build guides that you're going to be watching. So make sure you check those out. Looking at these nodes right here, there's very specific spots in your board where you can gain additional maximum resistances. I can gain 1 to maximum resistance for lightning here. I can get 2 here. So there's a whole bunch of places within your board that you will be able to go over. So make sure that you're looking for anywhere where you can increase and get closer to that 85%. The first thing you do though, and we'll have a completely different video on Paragon boards, it'll be in the description of this video, but unlock your glyphs, unlock your legendary nodes, then get all of the other damage reduction. Do not fill out an entire board like the planner says. If they say to fill out this board 100% for the next board, don't go board by board. Fill out only the nodes that are going to make you stay alive and get your character from Torment 1 into Torment 4. So we talked a little bit about resistances and armor cap and that I'm not there. We're going to cover exactly how you're going to be able to get your character there if you don't want to swap stats out and sacrifice some stats on your gear. Now, I could always add on this chest piece right here, and then I would be perfectly fine. I would have enough resistances. Now I'd be a little short on armor. So how do I counter that? I can find something that has max life, armor, and then add cold resistance onto that. Then I'll be armor capped, and then I don't have to worry about anything else. I've also added on poison resistance as a temper here too. So I've taken some of the tempers, and I've started converting those into resistances to make sure that I get closer to cap. So the last piece of the puzzle, this is going to be your incense. Incense plays a huge part in how you're going to be able to create your characters and get them strong enough for staying alive. For the Barbarian, now the Barbarian doesn't really have too much of an issue with armor because we have so much strength. Strength is going to give you armor. I'm gaining 604 just from strength alone. So with my incense choices, I'm actually going to add more strength because that's my main stat. That's a multiplier. Not every class is going to run this, but I put this on here. Now I'm going to bump up to 717. Then I'm just going to add in soothing spices. This is going to make it so that my resistances now go up. I'm still a little short on cold resistance, so you're going to have to see how your damage reduction is, whether or not you want to replace something in order to get your resistance there. But I'm now up to 868 armor. The last one that I'm going to be running this season is going to be Song of the Mountain. That will now put me over my armor cap, and now I'm just a little bit short here. So that's where you're going to have to mess around with your characters and see what you want. But if you put my other chest piece on right here, I'm now capped and I'm capped, and that is going to be enough to keep you alive. I have all the damage reduction that I need. So figure out where to put your resistances on your gear, how you're going to run your incense, and what is going to fit best to keep your character alive. Now, people have asked, how do I get enough mats to make sure that I'm always getting incense? If you go to your map here, there's going to be constantly grim favors for different things like your lair boss here. So Beast in the Ice. If you're not strong enough to kill on Torment 4, that actually doesn't matter. You can go right down to Torment 1. You can zone into the lair boss. You can kill the boss. You don't even have to have materials to open up the chest. You still get the grim favors. It'll take you 30 seconds. You kill the boss. You switch back to Torment 4. You go turn in your grim favors, and then you're going to get your cache right here. Each of these caches are going to have a ton of materials inside of them, not just your gear. We've now gained a ton of items that are going to help you craft your incense and keep you alive. So make sure you always check your map, look for all of the little grim favors here. If it's something like the Infernal Hordes and you don't have a lot of time, pop a 6-wave, do your Beast in the Ice. This will help you maintain your material so you can keep your incense on. That's all I got. Hopefully you stay alive out there. If you found this video helpful, make sure you share it with your friends. Thank you everybody for watching. I'm live every night. I'd love it if you stopped by, said hi, theory crafted with me. Catch you on the clip side.